that got heated. In my last viral video, we talked about how women are trending towards singledom and choosing to be alone rather than be in low-value relationships with men. Research tells us almost 80% of divorces are initiated by women, and there is an epidemic of lonely, single, depressed men over the age of 40. Let's talk about why. For all the benefits that a patriarchal system bestows on men as a group, it deeply hurts men individually. And it's the single largest threat to men's physical and mental health.
Wrong! No, woman, I disagree. The largest threat to a man's physical and mental health is the modern woman. Well, that and bat fights. But let's think about this for a second. Modern women initiate about 80% of all divorces, and that's not because of a patriarchal society. Those don't really exist. The patriarchy is just a nonsense buzzword you use to blame everything bad that happened to you that could have easily been prevented with common sense. If these divorces were being initiated by women, then it's impossible for every single one of them to be the man's fault exclusively, especially when we have all sorts of testimonial evidence from divorced broads who can't name one specific thing their ex-husbands did to them in order for them to initiate the divorce in the first place. It's always vague terminology like narcissism, financial abuse, and healing journey. And in those cases, the man usually did everything he could to make the marriage work, only for it to end in that man being broken emotionally, spiritually, and financially. It's not worth it for a man anymore. At least in a bat fight, it consists of honor and diplomacy. And that's not something a modern marriage has in even the most minuscule of amounts.
Toxic masculinity discourages men from going to the doctor or seeking mental health support. Men aren't encouraged to build relationships based on vulnerability, intimacy, and trust. Aren't encouraged to understand, connect to, or express their emotions. So they show up in relationship devoid of emotional intelligence and emotional availability. They learn to use violence or aggression to express any deep feeling. Alternatively, they shut down completely and don't have the capacity to either emote or to hold someone else's emotional range. Encourages traits like aggression, power, and greed. None of these things that men value are appealing to women. So based on a woman's value system, men like this don't have a lot to bring to the table. Don't shoot the messenger. Facts over feelings.
Hey.
So if a man doesn't emotionally express himself the same way as you, that makes him a violently immature oaf, huh? Even though it's fairly obvious, there's nothing you find more unattractive than a man who openly expresses those emotions. It's not that men weren't trained to deal with their emotions. Actually, it's quite the opposite. We were taught to control our emotions and to keep them in check for the sake of society. That's why we hold stoicism as such a virtue. Any problems we do have, we deal with in a mature manner, and that usually consists of not sharing them with you. Let's be real here. Even if we did share our emotions with you, you would either store them in your spite bank to use against us at a later date, or you wouldn't care, and personally, I don't know which one is worse. So frankly, it's just easier to deal with our issues on our own than involve you, because you made it clear that no matter what the issue, it's always our own fault anyway. So checking out is the safest way for us to be able to live our lives without getting needlessly hurt. Besides, even if that weren't true, what do you care? You're thriving in your singledom. Why does it matter how we feel about anything? Shouldn't you be out there living your best life instead of blaming us for your failures? Oh wait, that's right, I forgot. If you're not blaming us for your failures, that would mean you'd have to admit that you failed. And we can't have that, now can we?
No one makes friends with a failure. Okay? You understand?
I think a lot of y'all are really confused on what the bare minimum actually is. The bare minimum is not consistent communication via phone calls and text messages. The bare minimum is not planning dates. The bare minimum is not good night texts and good morning texts. That is just average, basic human decency. And what's really beginning to happen is people are glorifying bare minimum. What the bare minimum actually is somebody showing up in that relationship like they f***ing love you.
I don't think any of that's true.
Hey lady, I don't really think it's right for you to talk about love when you're incapable of feeling, giving, or even receiving such a thing. You can't even put a definition for the bare minimum. You see, in order for a relationship to work, both parties must put in some effort to make it work. That includes regular communication, mutual attraction, and a desire to keep things going. But you have none of those, as you think regular human decency is somehow less than the bare minimum. But somehow the bare minimum involves a man putting in way more effort than you deserve for a woman who isn't worth the $3 it would cost to get a cup of coffee just to talk with you. That's why the bare minimum is completely meaningless. It just dehumanizes men into nothing more than service providers. It's all about how he makes you feel and what he can do for you. And with your attitude and treatment of men, I think it's safe to say I know the value of both.
Nothing! Absolutely nothing! Stupid! You're so stupid!
It's showing up at your house unexpectedly with flowers. It's sending you coffee at work when they know that you're tired that day. It's doing things to alleviate stress in your life. If your car needs an oil change, taking it for an oil change. If you need help with things around the house, it's rubbing your feet after you had a long day. It's actually wanting you to be a part of their life and wanting to be a part of your life. Doing all of the unspoken things without having to be asked to do it. Because we're really out here glorifying the bare minimum. Because bare minimum is not consistent communication. Bare minimum is not taking you on a date. That is, I don't know what is below bare minimum, but that's what it is.
Right.
So, the bare minimum is apparently a combination of mind reading and indentured servitude. You just expect this man to make your life easier without any form of communication. You expect him to just buy you flowers randomly, even though you're always expecting him to buy you flowers. You want him to just automatically buy you coffee when you're sleepy, and in your eyes, the bare minimum is nothing but romantic gestures and alleviating your ignorance towards auto mechanics. Meanwhile, you're doing absolutely nothing to make the man's life easier. You're not rubbing his back after a hard day's work. You're not cooking him a hot meal or buying him a video game unexpectedly. It's all about what he can do for you and nothing else, which is one-sided, which makes it not worth it. Modern women have determined a man's value is based on what he doesn't do. He could do everything within her standards, but the second he doesn't buy her a coffee when she silently hints that she's sleepy, then all of a sudden he's not doing the bare minimum. It's no wonder why men are walking away. It's too much to ask to be appreciated nowadays.
Oh, you're right. And when you're right, you're right. And you're always right.
There are so many women over 30 to 40 years old that believe that they will never find anyone. They've been brainwashed that they are too old. Look, there's no guarantee. There's no guarantee that anybody's going to find love. It's not an easy thing to find. But I can tell you what you can do to increase your odds. First of all, if you want to find love, you have to know exactly what you're looking for. I have written my list of non-negotiables that I wanted in a man. And last year, I went out on 18 first dates after vetting over 100 men on the phone. And I quickly discerned whether or not they were for me or not, for the most part.
That's nothing to be proud of, Rusty.
Woman, those lists are completely meaningless. First off, you're more crust than bread. That automatically lowers your value next to nothing. Second, making a list just shows that you're incapable of respecting that man because all you're doing is making demands of him. And third, going on 18 first dates in a year isn't a flex. It just goes to show how undesirable you are, as that means 18 men were either uninterested in dealing with your crap, or you realize that these men weren't good enough for settling. Either way, it's your problem. Making a list of demands is just one of your many strategies for self-sabotage. Men don't want women with a laundry list of demands because it just goes to show that you're going into dating with the intention of treating a man like a commodity. And I got 50 intergalactic space bucks that says if you were to go out on a date with a man who has a list of things similar to yours, you would be incredibly offended at the idea that he could demand so much from a woman. And that's a double standard that makes you unworthy of the reasonably priced hot brunch of the intergalactic space god Tom Clomafar. All hail. He's the kind of man who's not about to waste cinnamon rolls on an entitled broad like you.
If you don't know what you want in a partner, then people will hold up the line. So you need to be clear and make a decision. Once you figure out the kind of man that you want, then you need to work on, are you that woman? Because you can't ask for something you're not. So you need to work on your healing and make sure that you're good and that you're healing towards secure attachment. And you're not a desperate bitch pick-me girl, because you will be preyed upon. Then you got to put yourself out there. You cannot rely on dating apps. No, ma'am. You got to join local clubs. You got to go to fairs and festivals and events. Find some hobbies that you really love and join some clubs for that, or volunteer at some places that really mean something to you. That will help increase your odds.
Are you sure?
I hate to break it to you, sister, but I don't think it's a good idea for you to be going to events when the last one you set up yourself failed miserably. Now, your advice would make sense if it wasn't for that problem that you're encouraging women to go out and do a thing with the intent of finding a man. And those kinds of things aren't things that men like doing, and that's not exactly in your wheelhouse. Again, your failed fishing singles event proves that beyond the shadow of any doubt. And the fact that you're telling women to heal their traumas is just malarkey. We all know that healing your trauma means complaining to a therapist once a week and watching TikTok videos that blame men so you can justify your bad decision-making skills. And even if that wasn't the case, there's something else. You are old. Now, sure, that's not a complete deal breaker for some men out there, but you're far past your prime and not nearly as desirable as you think. And if you ask most self-respecting men about what they want in a woman, most of them are going to say they want someone younger. Not some used up old battle axe with a demanding personality and nothing to offer in return.
And then lastly, you gotta actually talk to people and smile and be friendly and make conversation. I know this sucks for my shy friends, but even a smile will go a long way. Now, I went after it. I spent an entire year sorting through the dating apps, joining clubs, going out and meeting people constantly, and vetting hundreds of men because I was determined to give it my all and see if I could find love. It worked. I found love. And I also grew so much during that year. The whole journey is on this platform, as embarrassing as some of that journey was. But anything's possible.
Nobody cares, Sean. Nobody cares.
Okay, woman, be serious for a second. You didn't find love. You still physically have your list. If you found your true love, you'd have zero need for that list. So that leads me to one of two conclusions. One, that man not only met every single one of your standards, but he was also okay with it, thus making him a simp and not worthy of your respect. Or two, this man met zero of your demands, but he was physically attractive and willing to take you to bed, which means it isn't love to him. Now, if I'm wrong and it's something legitimate, then congratulations, but nobody really cares. Your so-called advice led to the exception, not the rule. And it's not going to work for most old women who are past their prime in almost every way imaginable. What you're saying they should do is yet another coffin nail where more were actually rather unnecessary.
Why not you? If you do the work and you don't find love, then at least you grow as a person and know that you're the love of your life. And you got to meet a lot of new people. There are plenty of men in this world that are looking for age-appropriate love. It's just finding those men that's the struggle. And that's why you got to put yourself out there. But we don't give up on hope around here. We go after what we want and we make it happen. And if we fail, but at least we tried.
Nice try.
Sister, you just proved my point. How could there be plenty of men out there who have a granny fetish, but they're a struggle to find? The fact that you had to talk to over 100 men and date 18 guys just proves this little factoid. There will always be exception to the rule, but men, for the most part, are attracted to young, fertile, kind women, and you are none of those. And to add insult to injury, you also air out all of your dirty laundry on TikTok. So if your so-called relationship does go south, that man now has to run the risk of you openly disrespecting him and dragging his good name through the mud because of your emotional instability and your insatiable appetite for internet clout. And men don't want to deal with that. They would rather have someone who's going to treat him with the bare minimum of respect. You can't provide that. You're entitled, mean-spirited, and more barren than the continent of Antarctica. And that's gonna do it for today's video, gentlemen and gents. And as always, if you find that my particular brand of comedy is bringing you to the brink of laughter, then why don't you scroll on down and click that like and subscribe button. Ring the notification bell, leave a couple of comments, make sure to share this video so we can give the good old-fashioned middle finger to the YouTube algorithm. Thank you so much for checking out the new video, and until next time, peace out, homies.